Admiral Frank Harrison stood at the viewport of the USS Defiant, watching Earth below. The blue planet seemed peaceful from space, but he knew better. His communication device beeped with a message from Ambassador Lavra Mitchell. He took a deep breath before reading it. They rejected our final proposal. Unanimously, Frank closed his eyes for a moment. He had expected this outcome, but hoping for it to be different was human nature. 3 years of talks with the Galactic Council had led to nothing. 3 years of trying to make aliens understand that humans deserved equal treatment. 3 years wasted. Humans had joined the galactic community 50 years ago. At first, everyone was excited. Humans would learn from older species, trade with them, and explore space together. But the reality was different. The Galactic Council, led by the ancient Joric Imperium, treated humans like children. Dangerous children who needed to be watched and controlled. The Council put trade restrictions on Earth goods. They blocked humans from getting new technologies. They limited where human ships could go. Each year, the rules got stricter, always with the same excuse: humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be trusted. Lavra Mitchell was the best diplomat Earth had. She led the human team in the peace talks. For 3 years, they offered compromise after compromise. They agreed to slow down military growth. They offered to share new human inventions like quantum communication. They even accepted some oversight of human colonies, but the Council always wanted more. Their latest demands crossed every line. They wanted humans to give up all weapons. They wanted to take most of Earth's water. Worst of all, they wanted to change human DNA to make people less aggressive. They wanted to change what made humans human. Frank walked away from the viewport and sat at his desk. His computer showed a message from President Allison Reeves calling an emergency meeting. The United Earth government would have to decide what to do next. 6 hours later, Frank stood in the main conference room of the UEG headquarters in Geneva. President Reeves had just announced the decision. Earth would leave the Galactic Council. "We came to them as equals," President Reeves said. Her voice was calm but firm. "They treated us like servants. We offered friendship. They demanded submission. Today we choose a different path." The room was quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. Leaving the Council would have huge consequences. Earth would lose access to alien markets and technologies. Some human colonies in disputed areas might have to be abandoned. There could even be military action if the Council felt threatened, but staying in the Council would be worse. Humans would slowly lose everything that made them who they were: their freedom, their identity, their future. "The Council believes we have no choice but to accept their terms," President Reeves continued. "They think we need them more than they need. US, they are wrong." She nodded to General Maria Collins, who stood up and activated a large screen. It showed a star map with several highlighted areas far from Earth. "For the past 10 years, we have been preparing for this possibility," General Collins explained. "Operation Exodus is ready to begin." Frank knew about parts of the plan, but seeing the full scope made him sit straighter in his chair. It was bold. It was risky. It might just work. Lieutenant Samantha Powell entered the conference room and walked directly to Frank. "Admiral, the President wants you on stage for the announcement," she whispered. Frank nodded and stood up. Outside, thousands of people had gathered in the square. Millions more were watching the live broadcast around the world. They deserved to know the truth. President Reeves spoke clearly and without fear. She explained the Council's unfair demands. She detailed how negotiations had failed. Then she announced that Earth was withdrawing from all Council treaties and agreements. "This is not a decision we take lightly," she said. "But we will not compromise our freedom or our dignity any longer. Humanity deserves better." The crowd was silent for a moment, then erupted in cheers and applause. Frank was surprised. He had expected fear, maybe even anger. But people seemed relieved, even hopeful. Perhaps they had seen this coming for a long time. Back on the USS Defiant, Frank called a meeting with his senior officers. They needed to prepare for what would come next. The Council won't let us go easily, Commander John Ellis said. Their ships are already positioned near our major colonies. Frank nodded. Our first priority is to get our people home safely. All civilians in Council space need immediate evacuation. What about the colonies? Asked Lieutenant Powell. Some have been established for generations. Those in secure space will stay, Frank answered. The ones in disputed regions or deep in Council territory will need to be evacuated too. It's not fair, but it's necessary. The next few days were a blur of activity. Ships were dispatched to every corner of known space. Diplomatic staff were recalled from Council worlds. Defense systems around Earth and secure colonies were put on high alert. Frank received hourly updates from around the galaxy. Most were going according to plan, but not all. The Council had detained several human ships near the Proxima station. A research outpost on Kepler 22b was surrounded by Zorak warships. They're trying to take hostages, Frank told President Reeves during their secure call, to force us back to the negotiating table. Can we get our people out? She asked. We're working on it, Frank replied. But we may need to show force. President Reeves was quiet for a moment. Do what you need to do, Admiral. But remember, we're trying to leave the Council, not start a war with them. Frank understood this was a delicate balance. They needed to show strength without provocation. Defense without aggression. On the 6th day after the announcement, Frank got the call he had been dreading. A Zorak cruiser had fired on a human transport trying to leave the Tau Ceti colony. The transport's engines were damaged, and it was drifting in space with 200 civilians aboard. Get me a direct line to the Zorak ship, Frank ordered. The face of a Zorak commander appeared on screen. The alien's scaled skin and multiple eyes would have once seemed strange to Frank, but after years of dealings with the Council, he barely noticed anymore. Your ship fired on unarmed civilians, Frank said. This is a direct violation of galactic law. The transport ignored our orders to stop, the Zorak replied. All ships must have Council permission to leave the system. Those restrictions do not apply to us anymore, Frank said. We have withdrawn from the Council. Those are Earth citizens returning home, and you will let them pass. The Zorak made a sound that might have been a laugh. And if we refuse, you have no ships close enough to help them. Frank smiled slightly. Look at your long-range scanners, Commander. There was a pause as the Zorak checked something off-screen. When he looked back, his eyes had widened. Impossible, he said. How did you... New technology, Frank explained. One of many we chose not to share with the Council. Now, you will let that transport continue on its way, or you will find out what else we've been developing. The quantum jump drive was humanity's best-kept secret. It allowed ships to travel vast distances almost instantly. The USS Valiant had jumped into the Tau Ceti system moments ago. Appearing behind the Zorak cruiser with weapons ready, the Zorak commander hesitated, then nodded. The transport may proceed. Frank ended the transmission and leaned back in his chair. This was just the beginning. The coming weeks and months would bring more confrontations, more tough decisions, but for the first time in years, Frank felt something close to hope. Humans were charting their own course among the stars now. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be their choice, their future. Their way forward. Ambassador Mitchell entered the bridge and stood beside him. The president sent me to coordinate the diplomatic side of things, she explained. Any regrets? Frank asked. Lavra looked out at the stars. Only that we didn't do this sooner. Chief Engineer Alan Rodriguez worked quickly as his team disconnected human systems from the galactic hub on Centauri Prime. His fingers moved with purpose across the control panel, carefully removing each piece of human technology from the shared network. The Council aliens watched from a distance, their faces showing different forms of shock, anger, and disbelief. Humans were actually leaving. You realize this action breaks 17 rules in the Charter, said Ambassador Krasthal of the Zorak Imperium. His voice had that familiar hissing quality that all Zoraks had when speaking human languages. Alan did not look up from his work. Funny how those rules only seem to matter when humans break them. For years, the Council had ignored their own rules whenever it suited them. They restricted human trade but allowed other species to break the same rules. They claimed certain areas of space were protected, then let their friends mine those same areas. They demanded humans share all their discoveries while keeping their own secrets. Alan removed a small black box from the central computer system. This device contained the complete human contribution to the shared knowledge database. The box held advanced farming methods, new medical treatments, and engineering. Solutions that had impressed even the oldest council races. All this knowledge would now go back to Earth. You cannot survive without the council, Krasl said. Where will you go? What will you do when the trading routes close to you? How will your colonies survive without our support? Alan finally looked at the Zhoric ambassador. We managed just fine before we met you. We'll manage just fine now. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as humans quickly and efficiently withdrew from council space. On the farming colony of New Montana, Governor Maya Daniels supervised the evacuation of over 3,000 settlers. These people had worked the land for generations, turning the once rocky planet into one of the most productive farming worlds in the sector. Take only what you can carry, Maya instructed the crowd of farmers and their families. Everything else must stay behind. A young girl, no more than 8 years old, looked up at Maya with worried eyes. She clutched a small stuffed animal to her chest. Where will we go? She asked. Maya knelt down to meet the child at eye level. Home first, then somewhere better. The girl nodded, accepting this answer with the simple trust of a child. Maya wished she felt as confident as she sounded. The truth was more complicated. Earth was already crowded. Taking back all the colonists from disputed territories would put massive strain on resources. But staying here would be worse. The Council would use these isolated colonies as leverage, threatening their safety to force Earth back into line. Maya checked her tablet. 15 transport ships were on their way, enough to evacuate everyone. The quantum communication network kept her updated in real time despite being light years from Earth. This was another technology the humans had kept secret from the Council. 2. Council observer ships hung in orbit above the colony. They had arrived shortly after the evacuation announcement, supposedly to ensure safety, but really to watch and report back. Maya knew they were surprised by how quickly and calmly the evacuation was proceeding. They had expected panic, maybe? Even a chance to step in and help by taking control? But humans had been preparing for this possibility for years. Each colony had evacuation plans ready. Each settler knew what to do. The Council thought they were watching a desperate retreat. They didn't realize they were seeing a carefully planned strategic withdrawal back on Earth. Hidden shipyards worked at full capacity. Deep in the asteroid belt beyond Neptune, massive ships took final form. These weren't warships, though they had defensive capabilities. They were generation ships designed for long journeys and colony establishment. President Reeves had ordered. Their construction started in secret 3 years ago, when the Council first began making unreasonable demands. In the Council chamber on Centauri Prime, Ambassador Lavra Mitchell delivered humanity's formal withdrawal speech. The Grand Hall was filled with representatives from over 30 alien species. Some looked concerned, others curious, and a few seemed almost pleased to see humans leave. We came to you as equals, hoping for cooperation and shared growth, Lavra said, her voice strong and clear in the large chamber. You received us as servants and threats. We will not sacrifice our freedom or dignity any longer. As of today, humanity withdraws from all Council treaties, agreements, and responsibilities. We wish you peace in your future. The Zhoric ambassador laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet chamber. And where will you go, humans? The Council controls all livable worlds within reach of your ships. Lavra smiled for the first time in months. That's where you're wrong. She turned and walked out of the chamber, followed by the entire human delegation. None of them looked back. On the mining colony of Titan, Security Chief Greg Butler faced a different problem. The local council administrator was refusing to let the human miners leave. 300 workers and their families were being held. in the main dome while Council security forces surrounded the area. This mining operation falls under direct Council control, the administrator, a tall Vexian named Zur, insisted. The workers signed contracts. They cannot leave without permission. Greg stood his ground. Those contracts were signed under the treaty, which Earth has now left. Our people are coming home. Zur shook his head. Impossible. The selenium mines must continue production. The Council has declared them essential. Greg had hoped to avoid conflict, but he had also prepared for it. He tapped a code into his wrist device. 5 minutes later, every piece of mining equipment on Titan stopped working at once. The massive drills, the processing plant, the automated sorting systems all frozen in place. What have you done? Sir demanded, his skin changing color in alarm. Insurance, Greg explained. All human-designed equipment has safety protocols. Built in, only human operators can restart these systems now. Zur's face showed his shock. The Council had always underestimated human technology. They saw humans as newcomers still learning the basics of space travel. They didn't realize how quickly humans adapted and improved upon every technology they encountered. The Council will see this as sabotage, Zur warned. We see it as protection of our property, Greg replied. Now, our people leave peacefully, or these mines stay closed forever. Your choice. 3 hours later, the miners and their families were on transport ships headed for Earth. Similar situations played out across Council space as humans reclaimed their people and their technology. Some withdrawals were peaceful, others required negotiation, and a few needed shows of force. But within one standard week, nearly all humans had left Council territory. Ambassador Mitchell returned to Earth a hero. Crowds cheered as she stepped off her ship. President Reeves greeted her personally, the two women embracing briefly before facing the cameras and the waiting crowd. The first phase is complete, President Reeves announced. Our people have come home. A reporter called out from the crowd, What happens now? The Council controls most known space. Where can we go? President Reeves smiled. For too long, we let the Council define the boundaries of possible. We accepted their maps, their rules, their limitations. No more, there are places they haven't explored, routes they haven't mapped, worlds they've overlooked, and we found them, Lavra Mitchell stepped forward. For the past 10 years, while negotiating with the Council, we've also been exploring beyond their territory. We've discovered something they missed. The crowd grew quiet, waiting. Hope, Lavra said simply. We found hope. Commander Joseph Benson walked through the massive halls of the Generation ship Horizon, checking final details before departure. The ship was huge, almost like a small moving city. It could hold 50,000 people in sleep chambers for the long journey ahead. The Horizon was just one of 12 such ships, all ready to carry humans to their new homes far from Council space. Navigation report, Joseph called as he entered the bridge. Lieutenant Olivia Grant looked up from her station. Course is set. To the Sagittarius Arm, Commander. Travel time to our target system will be 87 years. Joseph nodded, taking in this information. 87 years was a long time, but the sleep technology would keep the colonists young. They would wake up in a new system, ready to build a new life. The crew would work in shifts, with most sleeping while a small team kept the ship running. Then they would switch places every 5 years. The Sagittarius arm of the galaxy was largely ignored by the Council. They focused on the Orion and Perseus arms, believing Sagittarius had few useful resources or habitable planets. They were wrong. Human explorer ships had secretly mapped this region for years and found many promising worlds. The Council's scanning methods had missed these planets because thick gas clouds and strange gravity fields hid them from standard sensors. Human technology, developed independently, worked differently, and could see what the Council scanners missed. How many people are still boarding? Joseph asked his second-in-command, Paul Morris. The last group comes aboard in 3 hours, Paul answered. Mostly scientists and their families. After that, we're at full capacity. The people chosen for this mission came from all walks of life. Farmers who could grow food on new worlds. Doctors to keep everyone healthy, engineers to build cities, teachers, artists, and musicians to keep human culture alive. Each ship carried a complete cross-section of humanity, everything needed to start fresh. Joseph checked his tablet. Besides the people, the horizon carried seeds from thousands of Earth plants, frozen embryos of animals, and a complete database of human knowledge. Even if Earth itself was somehow lost, human civilization would continue. On Mars Base Alpha, Dr. William Carter made final adjustments to the quantum beacon network. This system would allow the scattered human ships to stay in contact with each other and with Earth, no matter the distance between them. It was perhaps the greatest achievement of human science, yet they had kept it hidden from the Council for years. "Pass me that calibrator," William said to his assistant, Dr. Nicole Freeman. Nicole handed him the tool. "Do you really think this will work across such vast distances?" William nodded confidently. "Distance doesn't matter with quantum entanglement. The particles remain connected no matter how far apart they are. Each ship carries entangled particles matched to ones here on this base. The connection is instant regardless of distance." This technology changed everything. The Council believed that once humans left, they would become scattered, isolated colonies that could be found and controlled one by one if needed. Instead, humanity would remain united, able to communicate and coordinate instantly across the stars. "The Council has always underestimated us," Nicole said, adjusting a setting on the main control panel. "They think we're just aggressive primates who got lucky with space travel." "Their mistake," William replied. "They judge other species by their own standards. The Jorek evolved as predators who hunted alone. They don't understand cooperation. The way we do, the Vexions evolved as hive minds. They don't understand individual creativity." In orbit around Earth, Admiral Frank Harrison oversaw the final preparations of the defense fleet, while most of humanity would leave on the generation. Ships, millions would stay behind to protect Earth and the nearby colonies. Their job was to guard humanity's birthplace and to misdirect the Council about where the other ships had gone. "Status report on the shield upgrades," Frank ordered. 93% complete, Admiral," replied Captain Linda Woods. "Earth will be fully protected by tomorrow." The new shield technology was another secret humans had kept. Based on principles different from Council shields, it could withstand much more damage. Combined with the new quantum weapons, Earth could now defend itself against even the largest Council fleet. "And the decoy operation?" Frank asked. "Ready to begin on your command," Linda answered. "False signals are prepared, and the dummy ships are in position." This was perhaps the most important part of the plan. As the real colony ships headed toward the Sagittarius Arm, carefully hidden from sensors, the defense fleet would create false signals suggesting human ships were heading toward the Perseus Arm in the opposite direction. The Council would waste time and resources searching the wrong part of space. On Earth, President Reeves addressed the people one last time before the great departure. Her speech was broadcast to everyone still on the planet and to all the ships preparing to leave. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for humanity," she said. "Not an ending, but a new beginning. We leave not in defeat, but in hope. We go not because we must, but because we choose to. The stars have always called to us, and now we answer that call on our own terms." Millions watched her speak, some with tears in their eyes, others with excitement on their faces. This was a gamble, perhaps the biggest gamble in human history. But it was also a chance to build something new, something better. "We will remain one people, though spread across the stars," President Reeves continued. "Earth will always be our home, our birthplace, our heart. But now we grow beyond it, taking the best of humanity with us while leaving behind old limitations." In the asteroid belt beyond Neptune, the first-generation ship Pioneer began its journey. Its engines glowed blue in the darkness as it moved away from the solar system. One by one, the other ships followed. They would travel close to Earth's solar system for several weeks before making the quantum jump that would send them far beyond. Council Space. Joseph Benson watched from the horizon's bridge as the Earth grew smaller on the view screen. Many of the crew had families staying behind, and this moment was difficult for them. Joseph understood their feelings. His own parents had chosen to remain on Earth, too old to want to start over on a new world. Set course to follow the pioneer. Joseph ordered, standard speed until we reach the jump point. Olivia entered the commands into her console. Course set, Commander. We'll reach the jump point in 26 days. Joseph addressed the bridge crew. I know this is hard. We're leaving behind everything we've known, but remember why we're doing this. Not just to escape the Council, but to build something new, something free. The Horizon's engines powered up, pushing the massive ship forward. Inside its hull, most of the colonists were already in their sleep chambers, dreaming perhaps of the new worlds they would help create. In the ship's central storage area, seeds and embryos waited in frozen suspension, ready to bring Earth life to distant planets. In the database, all of human knowledge and culture was preserved, ready to be reborn among new stars. As the last ship left Earth's solar system, the quantum communication network lit up with messages between the scattered fleet. Family members said goodbye to each other, friends wished each other well, leaders coordinated final details. The Council would be shocked to learn that humans could talk to each other instantly across such distances, but they would never discover the secret. The quantum technology left no traces in normal space that their sensors could detect. One by one, the ships reached their jump points and vanished from this region of space, beginning the long journey to their new homes in the Sagittarius Arm. To any Council observers, it would appear that the human ships had simply disappeared. Their search would find nothing. 2 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, the effects of their absence began to show across Council space. What started as small problems grew into serious issues that could no longer be ignored. The Council chamber on Centauri Prime was filled with angry voices as representatives argued about who was to blame and what should be done. Council Overseer Drekmer slammed his large hand on the table, making everyone go quiet. His 4 eyes narrowed as he looked around the room at the other Council members. How is it possible that our trade has dropped by 30%? He demanded. The humans were barely worth mentioning in our economy. Their departure should not have caused this much damage. Economic Advisor Zulther stood up holding a data tablet. Unlike most of his species, he seemed calm despite the tension in the room. It appears our economic models were not accurate. The humans were involved in much more trade than our official record showed. Many Council races did business with humans without reporting it because humans offered better prices and more creative solutions. This was the uncomfortable truth no one wanted to admit. Human ships had been fast and reliable for transporting goods. Human engineers fixed problems quickly and cheaply. Human farming methods had grown extra food for many worlds. Without humans, holes appeared throughout the Council economy that no one had expected, but economic problems were just the beginning. Reports from the edges of Council space showed that pirate attacks were increasing. Several small wars had broken out between member species over resources and territory. The humans had served as neutral parties in many disputes, and their military, though small, had helped keep peace in many regions. In a private meeting room, Intelligence Director Vashkor delivered a troubling report to the Jorik Imperial Command. The Jorik were the oldest and most powerful species in the Council, and they made most of the important decisions. The humans are gone, she said simply. Obviously, replied Supreme Commander Kralvex with annoyance. They withdrew to their home system 2 years ago. No, Vashkor corrected. They are gone, all of them. The Earth system contains only a small defense fleet and maybe 5% of their original population. Our spies report that billions of humans have left on massive ships. We do not know where they went. The room went completely silent. The 5 members of the Imperial Command looked at each other in disbelief. That is impossible, Kralvex finally said. Where could billions of humans go without our detection? Our sensor networks cover all major travel routes. Veskur had no answer to give. The disappearance of nearly the entire human population was perhaps the greatest intelligence failure in Council history. The Jorik had always considered humans to be primitive and predictable. This proved how wrong they had been. "We need to find them," said another commander. "If they are building a separate civilization, they could become a threat." "I have sent scout ships to search," Veshkor replied. "But space is vast, and humans have clearly developed technology we do not know about. Finding them will not be easy." Meanwhile, on a trading station near the border of Council space, a group of merchants from different species discussed the changes since humans left. "My shipping costs have doubled," complained a Tellarite trader. "The Vexian transport companies charge too much and take too long. My colony can't get replacement parts for our water filtration system," added a Nuvian farmer. "The humans designed it, and no one else understands how to make the special filters. Has anyone heard from Earth recently?" asked a Creole merchant. "I still have human contacts there, but communication has become difficult." The traders shared what little they knew. Some had managed to maintain limited trade with Earth, but it was becoming harder as the Council placed more restrictions on who could travel to the human home system. Many believed these restrictions were the Jorak's way of hiding how much. The Council needed humans. On the Jorak homeworld, Supreme Commander Kralvex reviewed the reports from scout ships searching for the missing humans. After 6 months of searching, they had found nothing. No trace of the massive human fleet could be found in any of the expected directions. "They must have developed some kind of cloaking technology," he suggested to his advisors. "Or they found a way to travel we do not know about," said an older Jorak scientist. Humans were always experimenting with different approaches to space travel. Kralvex felt a rare sensation for a Jorak doubt. Had they misjudged the humans so badly? The Council had treated humans as primitive newcomers who needed guidance and control. What if humans had been hiding their true capabilities all along? Perhaps. "We should consider reopening diplomatic channels with Earth," suggested a younger advisor. Kralvex hissed in disagreement. "That would show weakness. The Council never admits mistakes." But privately, he wondered if that pride would cost them dearly in the long run. Back in the Council chamber, a heated debate was underway about the human situation. Several smaller species had proposed sending a delegation to Earth to discuss new trade agreements. The Jorak and their closest allies opposed this idea. "The humans chose to leave," said the Jorak representative. "Let them live with that choice and its consequences." "And what about our consequences?" asked the representative from a small mining world. "My people are facing food shortages because the human agricultural shipments stopped. We need to re-establish trade, at least for essential goods." The debate continued for days without resolution. The Council, so used to having complete control, found itself divided and uncertain. Some wanted to punish Earth by cutting off all contact. Others recognized the practical need to restore relations. Behind it all was the unsettling question of where the majority of humans had gone and what they might be doing on a medical research station in deep space, far from the political arguments. A team of Council scientists faced a different problem. They were trying to contain an outbreak of a new disease that was spreading rapidly through several species. "We need the human medical database," said Dr. Laren, a Nuvian physician. "Their immune response research might help us develop a treatment." "The Council has restricted access to all human scientific data," replied her colleague. "They say it is to prevent humans from gaining any advantage from our research." Dr. Laren made an angry sound. "People are dying while politicians play their games." The humans were leading several promising medical studies when they left. Now that work is stalled, and we are paying the price. This scene repeated across Council space in different forms. Engineering projects faced delays without human insights. Terraforming efforts stalled without human environmental science. Peace talks between warring factions failed without human mediators. The Council had never admitted how much they had come to rely on human contributions in just 50 years. In a secret meeting of the Jorak Imperial Command, a difficult decision was finally reached. Pride would have to be set aside for practical needs. "We will send a private message to Earth," Supreme Commander Kralvex announced. "Not a full diplomatic mission, nothing official that would admit error. Just a quiet inquiry about limited trade resumption for essential goods and services. His advisors nodded in agreement. It was a small step, but perhaps it would lead to discovering where the missing humans had gone. The message was sent through old channels, encrypted and unmarked. The Jorik expected a quick response, perhaps even an eager one. Surely the isolated humans must be struggling without access to council resources and technology. Days passed, then weeks. No reply came from Earth. Perhaps they did not receive it, suggested an advisor. Or perhaps, said Viserko, who had remained silent until now, they no longer need us at all. That thought was perhaps the most disturbing of all. 85 years after the Great Departure, the star system now called New Horizon was alive with activity. 7 planets circled a yellow sun much like Earth's old sun. 3 of these planets now held thriving human colonies. The largest settlement on the planet New Earth had grown into a proper city with tall buildings and wide streets filled with people going about their daily lives. Governor Patricia Ryan stood at the window of her office, looking out at the city. She helped build. The morning sun made the buildings shine. Nearby, children played in a park where earth trees grew alongside local plants with purple and blue leaves. It was a peaceful scene that would have seemed impossible when they first arrived on this empty world decades ago. Patricia turned back to her desk, where a screen showed the latest population count. 3,200,000 people now lived on New Earth, with another 2 million spread across the other colony worlds in this system. The first generation born entirely on this world was now growing up. These young people knew about the Galactic Council only from history lessons. To them, Earth was just a story, a distant place where humans began. Governor, the quantum network is picking up an unusual signal, said Communications Director Eric Martinez as he entered her office. It appears to be a council diplomatic frequency. Patricia felt a chill run down her spine. After all these years, had the council finally found them? Are you certain? She asked. Eric nodded. The signature matches our old records perfectly. They're broadcasting on all standard frequencies. They want to be found. Patricia walked back to the window thinking. The council had spent decades searching for the missing human colonies. Occasionally, their scout ships came close to human settlements, but the advanced cloaking technology developed by Dr. Carter's team always kept the colonies hidden. Now it seemed the council had finally managed to locate at least one human world. What does the message say? She asked. It's an invitation to re-establish contact, Eric explained. They emphasize cooperation and mutual respect. Very different language from their old communications. Patricia almost laughed. Cooperation and mutual respect were exactly what humans had asked for before leaving council space. The council had refused then, demanding human submission instead. Now, after nearly a century, they had changed their tune. We need to inform the other colonies on Earth, Patricia said. This affects all of humanity, not just New Horizon. Within hours, the quantum network was busy with messages between all human settlements. The 12 major colony systems and dozens of smaller outposts all received the news at the same instant. Thanks to the quantum communication technology that linked all of humanity together across vast distances, in the central plaza of New Washington, the capital city of New Earth, Patricia addressed thousands of gathered citizens. Many more watched the broadcast from their homes. She explained the council's message and what it might mean for their future. They've found us after nearly a century, she concluded. They speak of friendship now that they've realized what they lost. The question before us is simple. Do we answer? From the crowd, an elderly man stepped forward. Patricia recognized Daniel Mitchell, the son of Ambassador Lavra Mitchell, who had led the original peace talks with the council. Daniel was in his 90s now, one of the few colonists who remembered Earth directly. My mother believed until her dying day that humanity's destiny was among the stars, Daniel said, his voice still strong despite his age. Not in isolation, but not in submission either. We left to prove we could survive without the council. We've done more than survive. We've thrived. The crowd murmured in agreement. All around them was evidence of human success. Their cities were beautiful and clean. Their farms produced plenty of food. Their children grew up healthy and strong. All without any help from the council. Daniel looked up at the unfamiliar stars above New Earth. Perhaps now we can meet them as true equals? Not as beggars asking for acceptance, but as a power in our own right. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. We'll send a response then, but not just to the council. In the decades since leaving council space, humanity had made many discoveries. They had found 17 non-council species, civilizations that had either rejected the council or been rejected by it. Together they had formed the Sagittarius Concordat, an alliance of equals based on principles of mutual respect and cooperation. Tell them, Patricia said with a slight smile, that if they wish to speak with humanity, they are welcome to send representatives to the Concordat Assembly. As observers, of course. They'll need to apply for membership like anyone else. Across human space, now called the human diaspora, people received this news with mixed feelings. Some felt vindication that the council now sought them out. Others worried that renewed contact might lead to conflict. Most were simply curious about the species they knew only from history lessons. Captain Diana Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Pathfinder, a patrol ship guarding the edge of Concordat space. She was the great-granddaughter of Admiral Frank Harrison, who had helped humanity leave council space 85 years ago. Do you think they'll accept our terms? Asked her executive officer. Keith Lawson. Diana watched as a formation of ships from 3 different Concordat species performed training exercises nearby. A Tellurian crystal ship, a Novan organic vessel, and a human destroyer moved in perfect coordination, demonstration of the cooperation the Concordat had achieved. They'll come, Diana said confidently. The council doesn't like to admit mistakes, but they're practical when they need to be, and they need new allies. The reports we've received suggest their alliance is fracturing. This was another surprise discovery of the past decades. As humanity built new relationships with non-council species, they learned that the mighty Galactic Council was not as stable as it once appeared. Without humans to serve as convenient scapegoats for their problems, old rivalries between council races had resurfaced. The Jorax ion control was slipping as more species questioned their leadership. What happens if they do join the Concordat? Keith asked. Can we really trust them after what happened before? Diana considered this question carefully. Her family had passed down stories of the council's arrogance and prejudice, but she had also learned that holding on to old grudges solved nothing. Trust has to be earned, she finally replied. The Concordat is built on actions, not just words. If the council species truly want to join, they'll need to prove they've changed, just like every other member did. 2 weeks later, a council diplomatic vessel entered Concordat space following the coordinates provided in humanity's response. The ship was escorted by Concordat vessels from 3 different species, showing the unity of the alliance on board. The council ship, the Jorik ambassador Trelvex, looked out at the escort ships with surprise. His people had expected to find isolated human colonies, perhaps struggling to survive. Instead, they had discovered a thriving multi-species alliance with technology that matched or exceeded council standards. We should have approached them years ago, said his Vexian assistant. Before they built all this. Trelvex didn't respond. His instructions from the council were clear. Establish friendly relations with the humans and learn as much as possible about their new alliance. The council needed new trading partners and allies as their own alliance weakened. They had spent decades searching for the missing humans, only to discover that humans had built something better than the council itself. As the diplomatic ship approached New Earth, Trelvex saw the sprawling human city below. It was beautiful in a way Jorik cities were not, with green spaces mixed among the buildings and clean energy systems powering everything. This was not what the council had expected to find. On the surface, Governor Patricia Ryan prepared to welcome the council representatives to the Concordat Assembly. The grand meeting hall was filled with delegates from all 18 member species. Humans were just one voice among many here, exactly as it should be, Are we ready to begin? Patricia asked Daniel Mitchell, who had been asked to help with the negotiations due to his historical knowledge. Daniel looked at the empty seats reserved for the council observers. I think we've been ready for this day for 85 years. As the council ship landed, a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. Humanity had left the stars to find its own path. That path had led them not to isolation but to a better form of connection. Not to weakness but to strength through cooperation. Not to the past but to a future with endless possibilities.